I am excited that Fundraising Academy has hooked me up with another expert to talk to today. Today it's Hannah Berger, one of the coolest names I've heard recently. And we are going to be talking all about fundraising ethics, nonprofit ethics. We're going to go deep in that very complicated topic. But before we do, Hannah, give us a little bit of your background. Tell us how you came to work with nonprofits.
Thank you, Katie. So happy to be here. So my name is Hannah Berger. I am a full-time consultant and philanthropy coach. I have a boutique firm based in Los Angeles, California called The Philanthropy Coach. And I have I'm going to go with 20 plus years in the nonprofit social sector. Um, and I've spent most of that time in resource and relationship development work. So most recently, I served as a staff member. I served as the chief development officer for a place called Home, which is a transformational youth development and community center in South Central Los Angeles. But prior to that, I've had multiple positions on staff as a senior fundraiser, as a volunteer board member, and of course, as a consultant working with dozens of different nonprofits around pivotal moments in their evolution. Generally speaking, fundraising or resource development work goes hand in hand with, big sort of pivotal phases for an organization where they're looking to make a big change or an expansion or change the way they do services or add locations or constituents. So my work is really steeped in creating community, teaching, guiding, advising, and helping nonprofit leaders raise more money so they can do more good.
I love that. We're all about doing more good here. Okay, so this is a tricky topic. When you sent it along, I was like, oh boy, there's about 50 different angles we could take with this. There's a lot of gray area, and there's a lot of like what I would call muddy water when it comes to ethics in the cause sector. So let's go big. Let's start. What do you think are the greatest risks? Where is our vulnerability to ethical dilemmas?
Yeah, they're actually kind of everywhere, right? It's funny. Of course, I was working with the folks at Fundraising Academy where I'm an instructor around this topic, and usually they hear ethics and they're like, "Oh, boring." I remember
Oh, I
back when
don't
I
think
was.
it's boring.
It's not. It's actually um, like very hot in the news lately, right? There's a
Yeah,
lot of
it's a
different
little bit
things going on.
scandalous at times.
Yeah, I mean, there's really juicy things there, right? Like the college admissions scandals as of late that have, tied up all kinds of celebrities in Southern California and their kids that are students in college. There's been some stuff recently around major philanthropists who have been accused of some pretty heinous things and their names being removed from buildings that they, were the benefactor of major programs that happened there. So it's really kind of juicy, and I work with it a lot. It's something that we start all of our fundraising academy training with because we want to make sure that we are training up the next generation of fundraisers and nonprofit leaders to be really mindful about these things so that they're well prepared to address these ethical dilemmas because they will happen, guaranteed, right? We
Yeah.
live in a world where, in a lot of ways, money equates to power. And when you're dealing with power dynamics between communities or within a community, an ecosystem, you just really have to sort of know where you stand, have policies in place. I guess that's the part that people find a little bit boring. Um, and, kind of think about those case studies that come up so that we can prepare ourselves to deal with them. There are organizations that support us in that, right? That kind of deal as governing bodies to help us align. But it really comes back to sort of digging into our values. And when I say our values, I mean each individual organization, right? We've got to
Hmm.
decide, um, you know, who we accept gifts from, how we do that, where are our boundaries around recognition, around the role our donors can play in program development if they're investing in said program, right? There's just so many avenues to sort of consider when we're developing our ethical policies.
So where does that start? I mean, my gut is that it starts at the board level, but so often at the board level, we have ethical dilemmas. We have major donors. We have people with their names on buildings or with, I hate to say it, an agenda for their support.
Right. I like to encourage that it really does live with your entire leadership team, and your development department has to have a really big role in kind of identifying what the potential red flags are, right? Because development professionals, fundraisers tend to be a bridge, right, between the folks with the resources to give and the work that we're doing and the stakeholders we serve, right? So we kind of see things coming before everybody else does. And to your point, if we rely on our board to develop or even dictate what our ethical policies are, we might find ourselves in trouble because there are other sectors that don't really even have to consider, everyone should consider, but don't really have to consider the people who are receiving the direct services, right?
Is this a situation where there should almost be a separate, and I don't know if it's a standing committee or maybe it's ad hoc as things come up, but should there be a separate committee to evaluate ethical dilemmas, ethical
Yeah.
situations?
My recommendation is that there's always a subcommittee of the board of directors that is staffed by development leadership and another leadership team member, so that their staff always having a voice in the process.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So I teach a new to nonprofit group, and one of the things we were talking about just yesterday, it was just came to mind, was how going into fund development conversations, going into donor meetings, how sometimes it's so beneficial to have two people. Do you think there's
Mm-hmm.
any safeguard against these kind of ethical dilemmas when I don't want to say you have numbers, but you have support to
Yeah.
maybe counter an offer of something that's inappropriate or to steer a conversation back into the green zone.
Yeah, I'm with you. Anytime you're sitting down to have a discussion about a major investment, it is always wise to make it at least three people in that room, and two of them are not the donor, right? For a lot of reasons, not just ethical considerations, but also because when we're in a moment where where our adrenaline might be pumping, so we're excited or nervous, we don't hear everything clearly, right? So just having that second set of ears. But yes, if you end up in a scenario where a donor is looking for some sort of transaction that is less than ethical, you have someone there to bear witness to that and to support when you need to address it, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, there's always power in numbers. And I would say walking into a scenario like that, you know, policy development and creation, and that's tedious work, in my opinion. It is. I'm sure some people love it. I'm not one of them, but it's so important, because the purpose of policies is that when we find ourselves in difficult positions, we don't have to be the one to spend the time to make the decision. We've already done that. We've already taken our values as an organization, put them on paper, and said, these are where our boundaries lie. And so then the choice is made for us.
And it just sets your development person up for success. You're kind of safeguarding them so it's
Absolutely.
not their personality or their motivations. It's just the law of the land. This is how we
Right.
do things at this organization. Because we don't want a Netflix special made about us. We don't want a docudrama about our organization.
Well said.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to turn off the live stream. If you're watching, check out the full episode on March 25th. I'm sure Hannah has a lot more great